People and Family Policy and Scrutiny Committee held here today in Committee Room 1. We are live streaming the meeting today on YouTube, and a recording of that will also be available afterwards on that channel. Given this, we would like to remind members of a couple of things. Please continue to speak clearly and not whisper. Keep other sounds to a minimum. Whispering, shuffling paper, and typing live in the keyboard might bring the camera onto you. Also bear in mind that the ceiling microphones are quite sensitive and they will pick up conversation in the room, including formal remarks. We're not expecting fire alarm today, so if it does sound, attendees should follow officers out the doors on the side of the room. Good morning, June. We are a bit thin on the ground today. We're expecting someone to join us online. We've had apologies. So it will be an interesting session. Thank you, June. Thank yourself. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 1 is membership, apologies, substitution and declaration of interest. Jasmine.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to thank a few apologies today from Councillor Mike Hardware, Councillor Peter May, Scott Clayton from Health Watch and Reverend Alan Moss.
Thank you very much. Next item is the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held.
Chairman, just before you go on, out of courtesy to our visitors, can I just point out that I have to chair another meeting at 11:30, so I'll be leaving 11:15. It will not be as a result of anything. I leave the meeting. Okay.
I'm very pleased that you highlighted that. You're chairing in East of England.
Yes, yes, local government East.
Okay. Thank you for that. Minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of December. Members, can I sign them as a true record?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Next item is a question from the public. Jasmine, do we have any questions today?
No, not today.
Okay, thank you. And the next item is the Children's Safeguarding Board annual report. We have a wealth of officers today. David Archibald, nice to see you. Paul Secker, our Director of Safeguarding. Lucy Morris, Assistant Chief Constable. Katie Seven, Head of Strategic and Vulnerability Centre at Essex Police. Dr. Giles Thorpe, Executive Chief Nursing Mid and South Essex ICB. Joe Barclays, Head of Safeguarding and Wellbeing Essex County Council. And Karen Hammer of Essex Safeguarding Children Board Manager. David will be starting the presentation, I understand, and then you'll dip in and out between. We will keep questions at the end unless anyone has got any burning point to make during the presentation. And over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I will begin and talk you through a number of areas. I think you have the slides. Just to summarise the areas to be covered, multi-agency safeguarding arrangements in Essex, summary of the annual report 24-25, key priorities for 25-26, highlights from 25-26, and something about key learning from reviews that Paul will later. So, moving on to the next slide. The Safeguarding Children is based in extensive legislation that deals with children's services, with health responsibilities, police responsibilities, and there is a regular update of something called Working Together to Safeguard Children. The most recent Working Together was published in 2023, and it's now the statutory guidance that sets out the requirements of what are called MASAs, multi-agency safeguarding arrangements. It's worth saying that we understand that work is currently midway or thereabouts on Working Together 26. So it gets updated and further developed from time to time. The name of the Essex MASA is ESCB, the Essex Safeguarding Children Board. The three statutory safeguarding partners are defined in legislation as the local authority, integrated care board, and the chief officer of police for the area. So, and Working Together 2018 introduced for the first time the concept of joint and equal accountability. There used to be perhaps less clarity about overall responsibility, but the 2018 Working Together said these three statutory partners have joint and equal accountability for ensuring safeguarding working effectively. So the statutory duties, the joint and equal duties, are to ensure that agencies work together to safeguard children and promote the welfare of all children. To include and develop the role of wider organisations, so a whole range of other organisations, probation, health providers, voluntary organisations, to be fully engaged, and to have a clear line of sight, the guidance says, in relation to the key and critical safeguarding issues across the county. So the lead safeguarding Working Together 23 introduced the concept of LSPs, lead safeguarding partners, and they are defined, the guidance deliberately wanted the most senior people to have a clear responsibility. So the official lead safeguarding partners are the Chief Executive of the County Council, the Chief Constable, and currently the three Chief Execs of the three integrated care boards. And Giles will no doubt touch on that later, but that will soon, very soon, be one one ICB and Chief Exec. So when that new responsibility came in, the LSPs, these very senior people, had their first meeting in December 24 and agreed that they would meet probably twice a year or more as necessary. They also agreed to work together across the Southend Essex and Thurrock footprint, not least because we have a number of joint approaches. So, for example, our safeguarding children procedures are agreed at the set level, and that makes life easier, for example, for health colleagues and police colleagues. The partnership used to have an independent chair, but from beginning of last year, the DSPs, that's the delegated safeguarding partners, rotate. So it was Lisa, a health colleague, that chaired during 2025, and Helen Lincoln, your DCS, is undertaking the role in 2026, and that role will rotate over time between the three statutory partners. Another emphasis in Working Together 23 was that education are a very, very important partner, something that Essex have understood and worked to for many years. The government in 2023 declared an intention to make education the fourth statutory partner. The current government have confirmed their wish to do that in due course. We understand that it requires primary legislation, so education are not yet a statutory partner, but in Essex we work very closely with education to ensure they are as involved as possible. And education are formal members of the DSP meetings. DSPs meet, and I as independent scrutineer attend all these meetings, meet regularly to identify specific areas to focus on, and in 2025-26 the scrutiny was agreed that as independent scrutineer I should look at overall implementation and effectiveness of Working Together 23 and the MASA, implementation of recommendations from reviews, and decision making in relation to cases of intrafamilial child sexual abuse, very much picking up on the recommendations of the national panel in relation to that. So moving on to the next slide. Given the number of education settings in Essex, we clearly can't have every school sitting in a DSP meeting, so we have a representative model that has worked well for many years, and schools, we think it's effective, and schools appear to be happy with that. An interesting development in April 2022 in Essex was that it was agreed a little earlier, but from April 2022, the three statutory partners, council, police and education, equally fund the work of the partnership. The primary cost of that is the business support team that Aaron heads up. Also the cost of carrying out reviews of cases, and having that joint and equal funding really demonstrates the way the three statutory partners work together to own the issues. DSPs meet 5 or 6 times a year. The overall partnership board, the broader board with 25 or 30 people from a range of partnerships, meets 4 times a year with about 3 additional meetings as required to look at receive the reviews from practice review exercises. The ESCB has clearly set out the relevant agencies. These are other agencies who are required to participate in safeguarding, and that works well. The next slide tries to set out in sort of chart form how the system works. So at the top you see the LSPs, that's the Chief Constable, the Chief Exec and the Chief Operating Officer of the ICB. The DSC meeting is Helen as your DCS, and Paul working with Lucy and Giles and his colleagues at the moment, but Giles on his own sometime soon. So that's the group that really meets regularly to drive forward the whole agenda. The board sits below that. That's the broader group with, I think, 25 or 30 people involved. Partly because of the size of Essex, there are 4 geographic operations. So we have what's called the Stay Safe groups. These are the more local groups working in each quadrant to try and ensure that lessons are being learned from reviews, that locally practitioners across all agencies are working together effectively, and generally these groups work well. Below that we have subgroups, the Performance Audit and Quality Assurance Group, the Learning and Development Group, the Safeguarding Practice Review subcommittee that Paul chairs and we'll talk about later. Harm in the Community is the group that deals with harms outside, occurring outside families, outside the family home. So looks at issues such as county lines, child sexual exploitation and criminal exploitation. And there are other subcommittees there. You can see, I won't go through them all. And at the bottom you'll see there are important relationships with other related groups. So the bottom right-hand corner, we've a set across the 3 authorities: Child Exploitation Strategic Review, a Strategic Child Death Review Panel, and in the bottom left-hand corner, we work closely with the Safeguarding Adults Board on issues of mutual interest. So the next slide talks about some of the highlights from the 24-25. It talks about the fact that there is significant system reform, in the sense that the government is pursuing the Families First programme to have earlier intervention and change the way that partners work together. The report highlights the effective collaboration amongst the statutory partners, and as it's partly my job as independent scrutineer to work with and support, but to hold to account statutory partners, and I see very clearly the three statutory partners in Essex working very closely together to make safeguarding as effective as it can be. Multi-agency focus on ensuring children and families get the right support at the right time. Stay safe groups continue to play a crucial role in local practice, as I mentioned a moment ago. Independent Scrutiny here states that Essex continues to work effectively as a multi-agency partnership with strong and effective relationships, constructive and meaningful challenge, and real joint and equal accountability across statutory partners. The report also highlights the importance of learning loops that link audits, training and practice improvement across the agencies. We carry out reviews of cases. We carry out single agency case file audits. We carry out multi-agency case file audits. The purpose of all of that is to identify areas for improvement, to learn, and then to implement the change through training. Finally, on the next slide, a few more highlights from the 24-25 annual report. The partnership conducts a number of online safety campaigns, which work very well. The ESCB website has an average of 13,000 hits a month, an increase over the previous 12 months. So people are looking at the website and using it, and hopefully it's having we're confident it's having a positive impact. There are regular ESCB bulletins sent to a distribution list of over 3,000 people, and the average open rate is 33%. Now, I'm not an expert in the field of communications of that sort, but I'm told that's above the industry standard. So it seems to be working well. The support team regularly updates the news section on the website, and that's resulted in a 42% increase in news story views. And a multi-agency working group has developed a multi-agency engaging with father figures practice tool following a report by the national panel about absent fathers and invisible fathers. So, next slide, learning and development highlights. Learning and development opportunities include core training for those working with young people, as well as lots of specified specific topic training. During 24-25, 94 learning opportunities were offered with 2,500 almost delegates attending. A recent introduction has been getting to know your partner sessions, with 400 and more attending 9 sessions. These are events where someone from a particular agency, for example the police, will talk about what they do in relation to perhaps sexual offences or offences involving children, and there's an openness across the partnership for people to join and learn more about what the police do, what certain health units do, and what children's services do. Safeguarding level 1 and level 2 multi-agency courses have been updated. Training for the community and voluntary sector is important also. So priority areas in the next slide for 25-26, supporting the social care reforms. So there are very significant social care reforms being introduced by the government. And they are primarily aimed at children's social care, but because safeguarding is such a strong partnership initiative, equally led by the 3 statutory partners, it is something we work on together across the partnership. Ensuring the system means focused on safeguarding children amidst the raft of changes. So children's social care changes, local government reorganisation, clearly a big issue. The changes within health that are imminent and have been and will be affecting the partnership, and forthcoming changes in policing. So at a time, we know that in safeguarding, times of change can increase risks. as in many fields of human activity. So the partnership is very clear of the need to be as focused as possible on safeguarding children while things change around organisationally. The development of Scrutiny to ensure some contact with frontline staff, as well as strategic leaders. That we need to further update effective support. This is the multi-agency document that describes levels of need and levels of response. Reviews continue to be a significant area of work, and the focus is increasingly on implementing the learning and evidencing the impact. The work of the neglect subcommittee has commenced and needs to be driven forward and is being driven forward. And finally, developing resources to support all practitioners working with children who may be at risk of harm outside the home. So next slide talks about challenges. One challenge is collecting data. It is something that partnerships around the country find challenging. And we're working with Thurrock and South End to have a set approach to collecting data. It's not collecting the data in itself that's the problem. It's getting sophisticated, nuanced data that helps the partnership to understand what the changes are, what the growing pressures are, the effects of what we as a system are doing. So to cut a long story short there, we are working around improving the quality and impact of data for the partnership. The flow of information across all levels of the partnership is a challenge, and the support team have increased their communication methods over the last year with positive results. A continuing challenge is ensuring that learning from reviews is effectively cascaded to frontline practitioners, and the agencies clearly communicate how changes in practice are directly informed by reviews. So there's a regular cycle of learning from reviews being promulgated, and Karen's business team then reviews agencies to say, so what have you done about it? What's changed? What's the impact? Because, as I said earlier, if any partnership is not learning from reviews and improving practice as a result, it's like something is not right. So we spend a lot of time on that. In addition, the partnership is aware of the need to ensure robust safeguarding arrangements are in place during restructuring in terms of ICBs, local government reform, and so on. So, further highlights for 25-26. Stay Safe, the 4 quadrant Stay Safe groups I've spoken about. They have recently held multi-agency conferences in each quadrant with very good attendance, 365 delegates attending. Very successful, a very good way of practitioners meeting colleagues from other agencies face to face to improve partnership and working relationships and assist with information sharing. The set procedures were updated in May of last year ahead of brand new web-enabled procedures that will go live soon. A suite of practice tools has grown with the addition of a safety planning practice tool and a physical chastisement practice tool. A multi-agency group developed a youth vaping toolkit for young people and carers. And the partnership's also working with public health to develop a toolkit to support carers in terms of how to talk with young people about online harms. And that's a very important area of activity. So, Chair, I will stop there. That's my section done. And I hand over, if that's okay, to Paul, who will pick up from the next slide.
I suppose I just want to ask you, Carlo, do you want members to be given the opportunity to ask David any questions?
Yeah, I think it will be wise, because otherwise we'll lose the threads. David, thank you very much. It's a lot of work been going on, and it sounds like the partnership working is very effective. and the way you've talked about, there is no major area of concern. That Southend and Thurrock, given it's a set framework, how do they contribute financially? You say each partner contributes the same now, which is great to hear, which is very different from the adult safeguarding board, and it's really good news. But what's their input in that, and how do they, what kind of seat at the table they have? I saw in some of the subgroup. Karen, do you want to pick that up?
Yes, that's fine. Sorry. So the Safeguarding Children Board is just Essex based.
Right.
So there is no seat or contribution from Southend and Thurrock in terms of the Essex Safeguarding Children Board. But for things like the set child protection procedures that are across the board, although Essex take the lead, and certainly one of my team has been very busy doing that, actually Southend and Thurrock both contribute to the licence that we got for this new web-enabled procedures going forward.
Okay.
They pay a share, and they also have contributed to the admin costs in the team, for my team, to actually get the procedures up and running.
Okay, so the initiative that you have conjoined with them,
Yeah.
they're doing
actually contributing as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Members, any question for David?
Can I just raise, clearly, one of the challenges, you mentioned local government reform. Sometime in the next few weeks, we're going to get an idea from government of their minded to decision. And I think we've all got concerns that in the change from today's world to tomorrow's world, something slips through. You currently work on a quadrant base. I think with probably any of the proposals that will need looking at again. How are you linking with Southend and Thurrock? There are discussions ahead, or is everybody just sort of waiting for something to come down from heaven, sort of thing?
So, you want me to answer that? So I think we have to recognise that we are in a period of unprecedented change. So within social care, we have the Families First Partnership Programme, which David alluded to, and we have LGR. And what does it mean? And actually, none of us sitting around this table, this room today, know what the outcome's going to be or what the repercussions will be. So we have a team which is very much focusing on these changes both within LGR and within Families First. There is a lot of conversation going on with Southend and Thurrock at the moment. It's a bit difficult to be too I suppose we can't decide quite what we're going to do until we know what the government's decision is, really. But there is a lot of, if you like, preliminary and preparatory work going on between the three authorities. If there were three, which is what Essex have understandably rightfully put forward, we wouldn't anticipate quite so many changes in relation to North and probably West and even here in Mid, but we can all see that there are going to be very substantial issues in relation to Southend, Thurrock and Basildon and Castle Point. So there is a lot of preparation going on in relation to that, but we don't quite know what direction to go in just yet. That answers where we're at. So we're very focused on it. We know that's going to happen, but there's a lot of uncertainty around, and with the uncertainty comes a lot of anxiety, both from all of us really, but also from our staff. So.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCrory.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, you may cover this later on, and it's a bit of detail, rather than the sort of strategic, but at some point I'd like to understand how you actually get your referrals. You talk about collecting data, so where does that data come from? I know you work with schools, and perhaps you could talk, or one of you could talk about your relationship with schools and how that works when they identify children that they've got some concerns about.
Karen, do you want to take that?
We will come on to the schools because Joe will talk about education, but it's just to say that so data for the board is quite a high level data around, so where are the practice concerns in terms of safeguarding practice, or on a wider level. So individual concerns don't tend to come to us. It would be more, for example, if there are blockages in the system around agencies working together, then things like Stay Safe would look at how they can work better together in the local area and how they can improve practice. So the data issue tends to be things like social care data that you see in other forums around the number of children on child protection plans or child in need plans. Police data would be very, very high level around sexual offences or something like that against children. Health data would be maybe about attendance at A&E or something like that. So it's very, very high level data. And the challenge with that is that we're not data analysts, so we have to rely on the agencies to provide the narrative, because numbers don't mean anything unless we have a story behind them. So that's the bit about data, but Jo will talk about the school's relationship and how we work closely with all education settings in her bit later on.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Roxton.
Thank you for the report. It's just a huge amount of information in there. So thank you for that. I just wondered, though, having read it, whether there was a way to kind of summarise if there are changing trends in threats to children's safety. I mean, are there particular harms which are rising that present a challenge? So just a bit of a kind of the dynamics of this on top of the data that's here. I'd be interested to know.
We'll have to take that.
That's probably Paul. The next bit on the agenda was me giving you a bit of a summary about the reviews that we undertake. And included within that brief summary that I'll give you will be some of the answers to your question. So when I've been here before, I talked about the massive and wide variety of safeguarding issues, and that hasn't changed very much. If I had to choose one thing that really keeps me awake at night, it's probably the impact of social media on young people and what impact that is having on young people generally. I think that agencies work really hard to try and support vulnerable young people. Probably mixed success, but there's all the traditional issues around bullying, about keeping children safe at school, at home, on the way to school, in the communities. I think all of those are really very relevant issues. But I'll give you my bit about reviews and then you can give something.
Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, mine was really on the slide where it's the ESCB 13,000 hits per month on the website. And you said, you'd mentioned in another part of the conversation that it's difficult to collect data. How do you know the sites that you're having, which is brilliant if 13,000 people a month are going on there, if it's positive or not? So who's measuring it? Where's the data? Do we know what inquiries they're going when they're going on the website?
So we can look at individual pages that they go to. The majority of hits on our website are people going to our learning development pages to access training courses. That is the majority. We also then have, so when we have things like an online safety campaign week, we know that we get an awful lot more traffic through our online safety pages or our exploitation pages. So it does vary over the month as to where people are going, but learning development tends to be the biggest attraction for people come to our website. What we do know is that we tend to hit professionals most, rather than obviously. Those professionals are also parents and carers and people who have contact with regard to children maybe in their personal lives as well. So I think we know that we hit the adult population, we don't hit the children and young people population, but actually there's lots of agencies out there that do that much better than we do. So we need to make sure we're signposting to those agencies that do it really well.
They then report back to you?
No, we don't have that. So it is, all we have is just the level of data of coming into the Essex Safeguarding Children Board website, and then people will go off and filter on other things.
Okay, right, thank you.
Okay. There's no more questions, so Paul, over to you.
So I'm going to talk about reviews. The statutory safeguarding partners are responsible for considering whether to carry out a child safeguarding practice review for any case where a child has died or has suffered serious harm and where abuse, neglect has been a factor. And also we do look at where there might have been concerns about multi-agency working. So they used to be called serious case reviews, and actually in the press you still see the referral to serious case reviews. They are now called child safeguarding practice review. even if the criteria is met to carry out one of those reviews, we don't have to carry out the review. It's not obligatory, particularly if there's no new learning to be identified from the review. So in our conversations, emphasise new learning. So what is this case telling us that we don't already know and that we need to really be focused on? Because we don't want to do a review which tells us all the same learning that we've actually had from a previous review 12 months ago. So that's where we're at the moment. So the purpose of the reviews is to identify the improvements that can be made to safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children across Essex. As you would expect, we take that responsibility very seriously. We spend a lot of time looking at those cases. We want to understand in individual cases, but also whether there are systemic issues and whether we need to change any of our policies and practices and the way that we do things, really. We do seek to prevent or reduce the risk of recurrence or similar incidents. So I think that we've had something like 7 new referrals, actually in about the last 6 months, and one has progressed to a full child safeguarding practice review. There will be local learning reviews, and we're going to have some thematic reviews. We've also done a thematic review in relation to young people who've killed themselves. We're doing a thematic review in relation to babies who are dying through sudden unexplained deaths in infancy. So they're very young babies, and they're normally being taken into a family's bed. So there's a lot of co-sleeping going on. That's okay if it's safe sleeping, but it's not okay if the parent has been either smoking or taking drugs or taking alcohol and really isn't very aware of what's going on for the baby that they are looking after. So that's really what we try to do. And I just want to give you a sense of what happens in Essex and what the Essex picture is really. So we have seen a significant increase in the numbers of referrals for child safeguarding practice reviews over the last 18 months. There's been a recent increase in young people very sadly taking their own lives. There has been a significant recent increase over the last 6 months in these SUDI deaths. Babies dying, co-sleeping, parents not every single parent gets safe sleep advice from the midwife and from the health visitor about not taking your child into bed with you, or if you are, doing it safely. But actually, some of these families are very sadly not picking up on that advice. We're also seeing an increase in babies, young children, with serious injuries and fractures. And what is that about? And could we have actually seen any of those vulnerabilities and risk factors in advance? So we have undertaken a significant number of reviews over the last 18 to 24 months. As I said, we do take that seriously. We have additional reviews in terms of we looked at 3 young people who had been convicted of murder of young adults, really, but they were Essex young people and they had been convicted of murder. We had the unexpected death of 2 adults who were drug users but had taken some contaminated heroin, and their children found them the following day completely deceased. So there was a 16-year-old who was very sadly killed when he went out to do a low-level drug deal about 11:30 at night. And so we've done a number of reviews, not just specifically where if you might see that as being strictly abuse or neglect, really. So a really wide range of reviews that we carry out. So what are some of the consistent themes that we see in some of these reviews and that we're concerned about? Families where there is cumulative neglect of the children, whether that's physical, emotional, emotional, even adolescents will be neglected or can be neglected. Medical neglect, because actually families are not taking their children to hospital or to have medical treatment, which they should be really. And then the very traditional ones around families where there is domestic abuse or there is substance misuse or there are mental health issues really. I think we are seeing an increase in families that we're finding very difficult to engage and very difficult to sort of cooperate with us. So we've published 5 learning reviews over the last year, and we've had 7 new referrals, but that's going up, as Karen and I have been talking about 2 or 3 that we're going to get in the next week. So several of those are close to completion. We've published 5, several of those are close to completion. We're probably involved in about 15 or 16 reviews at this particular time. So it is quite a significant workload. And we are also going to consider the learning from the National Panels Review of Baby Martin. That had a lot of publicity recently. This was the baby that was found in the carrier bag. The 2 adults who were like on the run, having had their previous children removed from them. And I think that generally the national panel felt that that was significant enough that they needed to undertake that review, which is what they did. There was publicity probably 2 or 3 weeks ago in relation to that. So areas of concern, which you asked, I think the impact of social media is really very concerning, and I don't think we've got to grips with it. I think you could equally say that about online safety for young people, and there's the case being brought in the United States at the moment in terms of the tech organisations not keeping children safe. And actually, a couple of those young people were, one was Essex, one was Southend. And so I sometimes watch the news, I watch what's going on in the United States, and then I see this mother that Joe and I met when she came in to emphasise, that tech organisations need to do a lot more. I think there is an issue about the sexual safety of children and young people in schools and in communities, and I think that's something that we are very aware of, and I know that Joe and schools do a lot in relation to that. And I think children at risk of exploitation and abuse from county lines and from involvement in drug activities, sometimes taking drugs, sometimes dealing drugs, and all of that. And I'm sure Lucy can add to that, really. And of course, what is really, really important is that when we identify the learning, then we have to ensure that that learning gets integrated into the multi-agency practice. So for our health colleagues, for our police colleagues, for our education colleagues. So we do spend quite a lot of time ensuring that. I'll stop.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That must be great admiration for the work. Carry out such reviews, because you must leave your feelings outside the door when you do those, and very, very hard thing to do. Any questions, Paul, members?
Can I
understand?
Hopefully, is there a pattern in areas in the county where the safeguarding issues are more prevalent, or deaths, suicides? Do you have an actual pattern to see if it is areas of deprivation or people who are hard to reach?
The deaths when young people are taking their own lives, the deaths when babies are dying through SUDI, the reviews that we're undertaking because children are being injured, quite significantly, fractures and everything else, they're pretty much spread across all of the quadrants. If I had to say where there were more, I'd probably say in North, around Colchester and Tendring, but they are, they're not equally spread, but they are across all of the 4 quadrants, really.
Can I have one more?
Yeah, please do.
I was interested about what you just said about drugs And we actually said this at the pre-meets, and it might be more relevant to the police. From a member's point of view, we get information of drug dealing taking place. I live on a line where we've got railway, and this involves county lines, which is what you've just said. And for many years, we have known that at certain times, you are going to see the person get off the train, they're going to do their deal because it goes on to the next station, it's on a branch line, it then comes back. And you see the teenagers in their school uniforms, very easy to identify because I'm rural. Data is often passed on, but residents say to me, there's no point, when, because nobody ever does anything about it. Now, I'm going back years, this is still happening. I've got a report, I can show you on my phone, but I won't, a few days ago from a resident saying they saw these deals. And it's open. It's open. And this is the reality of what is happening. And I really can't thank you guys for doing enough of what you do, because even now I'm sort of sitting there thinking, we know these things happen in our communities, not exactly to the extent of what you said, because we get the emails as well. But I'd like to thank you for that. But I do think there is a perception, especially on something as easy as county line drugs, that we have scrutinised this before, and I brought it up on my computer. It was raised at the last meeting a year ago, and I have seen no indication that the county line's drugs dealing has got any worse or if it's got any better. So I'm hoping that when you do your presentation, you'll be able to answer those questions, because it is happening, and it then goes into cuckooing, it goes into all sorts of other things. And these were raised a year ago when we had this meeting. So I'll be very interested in that. But thank you. And it's really upsetting, isn't it? And I don't know how you guys do what you do, but thank you. But I'm interested in the county lines and the drugs and the intelligence information that is given and doesn't appear to be acted on.
Lucy, will you pick those up when you do a presentation, or do you want to say anything now?
Not in the presentation, we're really happy to deal with that now. I think if I can just, in general, the threat areas that are concerning us in terms of harm to children, very much online harm, as Paul has explained. The percentage of our crimes that are recorded that are online or have an online element are going up year on year. And that's a variety of different type of offending that affects children. So everything from peer-to-peer sort of sharing of images or online harassment, through to the sort of more serious end, where there might be deepfake images being made. We've got quite an extensive media campaign actually that Essex Police, working with the EE, put together called Fake or Real, which is trying to help children and parents and carers understand and be able to spot the signs of fake images online. But also there is an ever-expanding risk around online offending, particularly around child sexual abuse material, that we could put more resources into that every month, and there are just so many offences in there of people who are sadly looking at and sharing indecent images of children. So the online world, I mean, I think just looking at some data around our child sexual exploitation crime figures, what was about 16% recorded as online back in 2021 is recorded as 30% of all of ours now. And actually, when you just distill that down into CSE crime, it's up at least 40%. So I think we anticipate that will continue to go up, because we are all online, and even if it's an element of a crime that's recorded is online, that obviously changes the way we have to investigate and the way we have to respond. I will try, if I may, in the course of the meeting, I'll try and dig out some of the information and data from our serious violence units and our raptor teams that deal with county lines. The plea, I would say, is please do keep giving that information in, because actually what they try to do within the serious violence units is not deal with a young, probably exploited child who is dealing drugs, who, if we arrest them, the next child comes in to deal drugs the next day. They are trying to dismantle the county line from the top down. So they are looking to try and use that intelligence, which might not be overt, it might not be police officers rushing in uniform cars to a location, but that information will form part of that broader investigation to try and go up the chain, take out the county line and the line holder, so that the whole line is dismantled. the impact for that is far greater in terms of safeguarding, both for the users, but also the children that they are exploiting to do that low-level running. And those are the people that we try and make sure now that our teams are aware of the fact that often what would have been seen 10 years ago as a child suspect is very much a victim who's being exploited, and there's a safeguarding responsibility around those children as well. So the presentation we're going to sort of pivot slightly towards is around missing children linked to exploitation today. But I think my colleague who came with me a year ago gave a huge amount of data around the amount of activity, arrests, weapons seized, drug lines dismantled last year, and if that is of use to members, we happily can update that for this year.
Can I just come back?
Yeah, please come back.
Thank you for that. I've heard that for many years now about taking the top people down, and I understand that. And I won't say the guy's name who was in charge of the police a few years ago, who actually helped in my division. He was then poached and went to the Met, which was a shame, but he was a brilliant police commander out here. And they were doing the same, but he also understood that they were the dealer at the chippy or the dealer at whatever who was low-level dealing, which also has an impact on community life. So I do understand where that is, but it's still happening. It happens all the time, and it's not a criticism of the police, it's an observation of these things seem to not change, and they continually happen. And I was just sort of really looking for, it's all right to say because you're a rural area, your population is only 3,000, you're not as important as somebody who lives in an urban area and their population's 15,000. It still means the same, and that's where I sort of do feel sometimes are neglected. But it's not criticism, it's an observation of and a fact of life. And sometimes I put it down to resources. Thank you.
And if I may, really important that we know about it, because we can only deal with something that we know about. So I'd still urge local residents to put that information in so that we've got the intelligence that we can work with, and within your role to speak to the local police commanders so that they understand what's going on in particular areas, because actually some of it is around prevention as well. So it may be about having that right visible policing presence at the right times, which is absolutely part of neighbourhood policing, which of course we're very much pushing towards stronger neighbourhood policing now. So the neighbourhood policing teams would be delighted to get involved in that work.
Thank you, Chair.
Useful local knowledge, yeah. Councillor Oxon.
I think Lucy Morris perhaps answered this a bit at the beginning, but you talked about social media and obviously the harm coming from the child sexual activity. Is it mainly social media that's driving that harm? Because the press get continually attracted to the idea of the predatory individuals, but is the main driver what's going on in social media for the harm that stems from child sexual activity?
Paul, do you want to take that?
I think my response to that would be, I think social media is driving a number of issues in a number of directions, but it is all over the place, really. It's at a number of different levels, really. I think that young people are being bullied on social media. I think young people are encouraged to send pictures of themselves naked. I think young people are encouraged to meet up with people that they don't know, that their only contact with them has been on social media. I think that young people are probably arranging drug deals on social media. So it's like everywhere, really. And I think it's a real challenge for our schools as well as to how you manage that and whether you allow phones in school, and then what happens when young people are feeling sort of threatened and bullied. I just think we haven't got to grips with the implications of widespread social media. When the kids are on right into the middle of the night, sort of going to sleep, and then still talking to people, still on social media at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and what impact. That's not the only reason, but it is a very significant.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, even if the ban comes on mobile phones in schools, they still access them when they finish schools. So the threat is still there. You don't take it away, do you? Any more questions? Councillor Barker. Oh, Karen, do you want to come in? Sorry.
Just to come back on the social media question. So Public Health carry out a survey for children from years 7, so 11 years old to 25, every couple of years around relationships and health education. And we had some online questions in that for the last 2 turns. So we are taking on some work from the feedback from young people, but actually the feedback from young people was that if something is making them feel uncomfortable online or they're worried, the people they want to talk to is their parents and carers or their school. So we need to make sure that the adults around those children and young people are also equipped to have those conversations. So we are working closely with Public Health at the moment to try and develop some tools and for parents and carers to help them with those conversations. And actually just to remind parents and carers, they are the source for those young people, particularly the ages 11 to 16-year-olds. They would go to their families.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Bartlett.
I'll try, Chairman. I'd be interested to have your views on sort of what age average child now gets a mobile phone they can use. And the other thing, the jobs I do here is I chair the pension board, and we've recently taken on board the new risk of AI. Now, 5 years ago on your mobile phone, whether it was nice or not, most of it was real. These days, this phone, unbeknownst to me, keep opening it up on gambling sites. I have no idea. I don't gamble on my phone, but it opens up on gambling sites, and then it sends me warnings because I've been on the gambling site. I don't know how to get rid of it. I've given it to people, and it's a new phone. But young people and the younger, if they're only 8 or 9, they can believe what they see there. I know that sounds silly, but it's not real, a lot of it, is it? You can have made-up violence or made-up sexual stuff. And it is exactly that, and I don't know. How are we working? How is it, who is working with the social media providers to try to get rid of some of that stuff?
Lucy, it's up for you.
I'll have a stab. The work with the social media providers is national stroke international. It's difficult because most of them aren't based in the UK, but that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be trying, because clearly I think most people feel that there is probably more that could be done. But the campaign I referred to earlier was a local campaign that has been disseminated through the Safeguarding Children's Board, Joe, into a huge number of schools across the county, which is trying to educate children to look out for what is fake and what is real online, particularly in the concept of imagery. But actually it's broader than that. It's about understanding the fact that not everything they will see is genuine and that they should have a questioning mindset. So that is but one campaign. There is more that needs to be done in that space, absolutely. But I think that's a good example of where the Children's Board has been able to help disseminate that messaging out across the county and also into numerous Essex schools.
Thank you. No further questions. The slide presentation goes to you ladies. Katie, are you going to kick off?
Thank you. Yeah, if I can just introduce Katie. So Katie is head of our Strategic Vulnerability Centre, really key role within my portfolio around public protection. So Katie coordinates lots of the strategic functions around vulnerability. Really good example being our response to the statutory reviews, making sure that we have delivered on all the recommendations from any of the reviews that come in the vulnerability space. But she is also our lead for missing across the board, but particularly missing children as well. So that's making sure that we are compliant with our internal procedures, that we're checking to make sure that officers and the frontline officers and staff are doing what we expect of them, to make sure that they're looking to locate children as swiftly as possible, but also, most importantly, understanding the wider risks, and also quite a significant role around engaging with partners and also care homes where we sometimes find that there is a higher risk of children going missing. And then capturing those emerging themes and also any learning from those missing episodes so that we can do the best to make sure that we're safeguarding children moving forward. So I'm grateful to Katie for a presentation that's coming, and it is linking missing to that element of criminal exploitation that we often see with county lines. So thank you.
Again, for actions. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, so if on the first slide we're looking at our levels of missing. Sorry, I don't know if you can see the data at the bottom, but essentially that line. Oh, sorry, it shows you from 2017 to 26. So there's an upward trajectory of missing children, along with taking into account seasonal dips. We do see seasonal dips, and they're repeated year on year. There is an upward trajectory, albeit at a lesser rate in the last 3 years. But in 2025, we had nearly 3,500 reports of missing children. A high percentage of those, so it sits around 60%, in 2025 it was 62%, are repeat missing children, and that's where we link into exploitation. A repeat missing child is open to more risk and needs that partnership working to identify, make sure we're identifying that risk, why the children's going missing, the push and pull factors, what's pushing them out of where they're living and taken care of, what's pulling them into other areas to go missing. So it's that 62% is important, because that is an indication that actually there's something else going on in this child's life that we need to sort of take a closer look at. So on to the next slide, we're looking at risk markers. So when a child is found and they return home, and they have an interview or spoken to by a police officer who speaks to them about where they've been, who they've been associating with. They also have the option to speak to someone in the local authority, and that often yields a lot of information as well, because especially if a child's been exploited, criminally exploited, they're groomed to thinking, do not speak to police, do not reveal information. When they're speaking to someone in the local authority, those barriers are broken down a little bit, although it's still someone in authority, it's not someone in a police uniform. So those interviews are really important for us, and those details, those are sent in to us as well, so please have a look at those. And that's where we get the risk markers from. So in 2025, we saw largely all of the risk markers going up, with 400 more vulnerabilities being identified with missing children. Whilst the county lines risk reduced slightly, the criminal exploitation risk increased to just under 200. That's not necessarily an indication that we're saying more children are at risk. I think it's probably more that we are getting better at spotting it and identifying it and recording it accurately. In reality, it's probably a mix of the two, but I wouldn't like to say that, there's 400 more children were at risk that weren't previously. It's just we're getting, using better techniques and technology and the training in terms of speaking to children and how we identify that risk is paying off, and we're identifying those risk markers better. So on to the next slide, I was going to talk about a bit of the prevention and safeguarding activity that's taken place. And this is some of the joint working, and it is aimed at different areas. So first of all, the Op Illuminate operation. This involves our Prepare, Prevent and Protect team going out at weekends into care placements to try and engage with young people, raise awareness of the exploitation and the risk and what the risks of those children are, but also to speak to the staff as well there to help them identify, to see what the indicators are. As a result of that work, some young people have been referred to on the Reroute scheme, which is a partnership scheme to work with young people around education and employment, and others have been referred to the Children's Society. So that is, it's about getting out into the placements to educate on the exploitation risks. They also do targeted action, so they do ad hoc call-ons on placements that are deemed either we've had a lot of missing children for repeat missing children there, or we've identified there might be issues at that placement. So the Prevent and Protect team will go out and go into these particular placements, and they'll go with people from the local authority, or they might go with one of our missing person officers, and they will speak to the child, and they'll speak to the placement staff as well. Gym visits. So the team are visiting gyms. So gyms, particularly 24-hour gyms, ones that allow children, they can present a real opportunity for exploitation, especially if safeguards aren't in place. So there is a guidance and education piece to be done with gyms around staff training, how to spot exploitation and how to do and what safeguarding actions they can take. So install CCT if there's a cost issue there, regular hall walks and things like that, or only accept photo ID. So that is coming up as an area where exploiters have identified an opportunity. So it's somewhere that we want to target. The next one is child-centred training for frontline police officers. So we've got what we recognise across the force is we have got specialist teams that deal with exploited children. We've got specialist missing person officers that deal with regular missing children. But ultimately, we need to be able to spot exploitation at every contact with a child. And that is often our frontline officers. So we have done a significant training piece last year with officers on the front line about engaging with children, how to engage, why it's important they engage, even if there's an adult taking control of the situation, but there's a child there. How to speak to that child, how to get that child to open up. And that's had a real impact on frontline officers in terms of intelligence in them. And then lastly on there is the PIR compliance. So I've done that very police speak, sorry. So that's a police intelligence report. So after every missing child episode when they're returned, our procedure is a mandatory intelligence report, and that has to go in to detail what intelligence that officer's gained from that child and that missing episode about people they've associated with when they've been missing, what adults they've spoken to, and where that person's been. And so that's mandated because of that, so we can gain as much intelligence as possible. Our compliance rate for that is 90% over the last 2 years. Every month we're hitting that. And that has been a sustained escalation process, which we've slightly withdrawn down, and we're still getting that compliance. So that's a success for us. Our officers are now recognising why that's so important, and it's not a tick box exercise. They're recognising why we need that intel to go into our intelligence analysts. So that's a really positive. So the link onto the next slide on the link between missing and exploitation. So a repeat missing child will be subject to a strategy meeting with social care and police. And that repeat missing is at the third time missing, or if a child's been missing over 5 days, we'll have a strategy meeting with social care. And that is to talk about the risks, what we know about that child, especially if they're a repeat missing child. There's also something called the Philomena protocol, which is in place, and that's essentially a planning for missing. So if we do have repeat missing child, that's in place, and what that details, again, is who they've been in contact with regularly when they're missing, where they might go. It is about locating that child as quickly as possible, but that is also an intelligence source. Any risk identified in those strat meetings, they go into the children's officer's pathway, and that children's officer will make contact with the placement and the child to understand. I talked about the push and pull factors earlier, what they are and what risk that child is at, to ensure that we safeguard them. Other safeguarding options available are a buddy tag, a NRM referral to the national team, or referral to gangs workers. So a buddy tag, sometimes we'll get a child that's involved in gangs or involved in county lines, and they want out. They're too scared to make that, and the pull there is too much, and they're too scared to walk the repercussions. What we can do is we can fit a buddy tag to them, and then they've got a reason to say to their exploiter, I can't be there at that time, I've got to be, this police will know where I've been, this is monitored, I've got a tag on, this is monitored, I can't do that. And that supports them be removed from that exploitation. Okay, on to the next slide. So this is Op Firefly. So when a missing person investigator or one of my missing persons team identifies possible exploitation or exploitation risk from phone work we've done. So we'll do phone work sometimes on people or on a child's phone to try and locate them. When we look at that, we might identify there's exploitation we think happening there. If we identify that, we'll refer it onto the specialist team under an operation called Op Firefly, and they will look deeper into that information to understand what's been going on in terms of try and identify offenders and understand if there's any other children being exploited. And here, I just thought it'd be good to give you some statistics around the last year's stats. So 77 children were safeguarded through this operation. So from those referrals, all the referrals last year, we had 77 children safeguarded. 113 nominals were arrested, resulting in nearly 130 charges. So it's really an effective tool that we're using to tackle exploitation. And I just spotted a typo on the bottom section. So you've got 2025 statistics at the top, and then the bottom table is so far this year. It does say 25, but it's actually 26. So that's, and those charges that I described are county lines drugs and modern day slavery. So a really effective tool for us in terms of what Liz described earlier about targeting the actual offenders rather than the children they're exploiting.
Katie, thank you very much for your extremely informative presentation. Very reassuring to hear some of the results that you've returned back. I'm particularly impressed with your PIR 90% compliance. How did you achieve that? Is that it hasn't been 90% all the time?
No, it hasn't. It was through an escalation process. So it was regular. My team will regularly check in every missing child, have they submitted a PIR, and then we had an escalation process. And it was quite a stringent process. We stuck to it, and we did targeted work for probably around 6-7 months. And as we've lessened that off, so we've achieved it through that escalation, but we have pulled back and lessened that off, and it's still achieving that 90%. So I think what that escalation process has done has enabled us to hit home that why these are so important. So it's still very closely monitored, and any dips we will, we will make sure that we are chasing and escalating as needed. But yeah.
Excellent, very good. Before I go to members, how do you put child exploitation in your priorities in your work thing, Lucy?
So it's part of the force plan set by the Chief Constable that exploitation of children is right up there front and centre of one of the force priorities. It sits within, we have a dedicated child exploitation team for sexual offending, but also our dedicated serious violence units are looking at county lines all the time, and within there is a safeguarding function. So they understand and have that responsibility for recognising children who are being exploited and making sure that they're linking in with partners and making the right referrals to try and safeguard those children. So it's right front and centre of the work that we do, but it's very much a partnership effort.
Very reassuring to hear all your activities that you've covered, Katie. Thank you. Councillor Oxon.
Very quick technical question. On the risk markers, the bottom three, the kind of criminal activity, I kind of get what CSE is and what county lines is. Criminal exploitation, is that a kind of everything else, or are there some key activities? Because that's the biggest within that.
So that will, that's any criminal exploitation that isn't county lines, essentially. Yeah. So if we.
But are there some predominant criminal activities within that, or is it just everything else that isn't county lines?
Yeah, it's everything else that isn't county lines. Yeah.
If it helps as an example, you'll sometimes have children who are exploited for shoplifting. Would you believe it? Who are sent into shops deliberately to steal items to order. So there is a range of. Offending where, sadly, children are exploited at the centre of it. The biggest categories, by far, are the risk around sexual exploitation and county lines exploitation.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, those figures for Operation Firefly are very impressive. What was before Operation Firefly? I mean, where did that come from? Is that business as normal now? I would hope so. But or has that been officers from places to get done? those results. You know, I'm just trying to understand, has that been there forever? Or is that just a new thing that started last year? And if it's a new thing that started last year, how much bigger is it than it was before, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
When there wasn't Operation Firefly, what was there?
Katie, would you like to take that?
I'm not sure how long it's been named Up Firefly, but we've been doing that phone data analysis for a long while. What Up Firefly has done is it's structured that process. So we'll always that phone data analysis has always been done. What Firefly does is has targeted that at county lines. It's been in place 3 or 4 years, I think now, Mum. And it's now routine that gets, as soon as that's spotted, we get that referral over. We don't have to rely on, a submission of phone data, and it going through a whole data analysis process. We can go straight direct to this team. So it's kind of streamlining and formalising that data analysis process.
Because, I mean, at our pre-meeting, we were discussing, what are the police's priorities? And, if we knew that the police are doing this and getting these results, but the general public doesn't know and it doesn't understand, and it would be really good. It's not good that it needs to be done, but it's good that it's being done. And I don't think police very often get their message across around what they are doing to protect people.
That's very much part of today's presentation. We can talk about what's done to address the scourge thing of our society. But Councillor Stam, did you want to follow up? I think you've had quite a lot of reassurance there on the county lines front.
Oh, no, it's absolutely fine. I'll still do what I always do, and I do report them to the Malden District because they just have an Food and Scrutiny Committee, and the police have just appeared at that. And what I will say as an actual thank you and a recognition, when you do raise it in these public meetings, things often get done. And to be honest, it's a shame that when you raise them in public meetings, things seem to get done, and maybe they don't as much unless you raise them in public meetings. That's an observation. We had, and we've still got them, you've got the latest scourge of the scooters, and everybody dressing in black, coming from a different area to a town, coming in, going to a local co-op, harassing everybody. They can't do anything. They're nicking to order, which is what you've just said, sending children in. Even chocolate bars now are wrapped in plastic. It used to be legs of lamb, was it last year or the year before? Now it's chocolate bars. But the point is, because you're often rural, the police are so far away, it takes them so long to come. The little sausages have got on the train and gone home, or they've gone on their scooter, and you don't see them. And I'm not being flippant. This is the reality of people who live in areas, and you've got a lot of elderly people and a lot of staff workers are really frightened now in their jobs, retail workers, because you've got them coming in and they can be quite aggressive. They're not about people that are like this size. You're on about them on this size on scooters now. And I think I'll give them the due when that was reported to the Over and Scrutiny Committee for me, because I didn't go to that one. And the police have targeted for a while. I know they can't do it all the time, but they did target it. But it creeps back in again. And that's the issue. When they realise the police resources had to be gone somewhere else, they then leave it 2 or 3 months, and now it starts again. And I do have a lot of sympathy, but it would be really interesting, like Councillor Barker just said, about your areas of priority now. Because it seems to me year on year they change. Sometimes it's knife crime because of what's happening out there, I would imagine. Sometimes it's shoplifting and housebreaking that was taken off the reporting list for a long time. You didn't have a policeman come out to investigate in your area when you'd had your house broken into because they didn't have the resources. And what you've just said is if we know, the public know, it makes them feel a little bit safer.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm really pleased that you had the response you did from the public meeting. And I think I'll come back to that point that once we know about things, we respond to where there are hotspots of activity or crime going on. We will point our resources to where they need to be. And they are a finite resource, but there is very much a focus around business and retail crime. And we know that nationally, shoplifting has increased hugely and is often linked to that antisocial behaviour. So the important thing is that dialogue with the neighbourhood policing team so they understand what's going on in the area. If it's reported, they will see that through the crime reporting and are then able to see that pocket of activity and pivot towards where there is an issue. So that dialogue and the local community is really, really important, and that you'll have those local neighbourhood officers will be able to respond to it. We do put a huge amount out in the media, doesn't always get picked up. I'm going to sound like our head of media here, but I would definitely say if you join the Essex Police Facebook page, or there is actually an online media newsletter called Dispatch, much of that information is in there. We don't often necessarily get the pick up in the national media, but as an example, we were talking about county lines, and this would have been out in the media. It was National County Lines Intensification Week from the 2nd to the 8th of March. 24 county lines arrests, 8 county lines disrupted, £109,000 of cash and 7 kilograms of cocaine and a ton of cannabis was taken off the streets in a week. So there is lots of activity going on. It's just always the challenge is to try and get that message out. But that local communication is so important with the local teams. Please do keep that going.
Can I come back to you? I think the main problem people have is they think there's no point in reporting it. And I've been saying this for a long time. It doesn't matter how many times you go to town council and parish council meetings, say report it, they go, why bother when it don't get done? And that, I think that is one of the main issues that the police have got, is to make sure there is a campaign that say, ring up and report it. It will help, it will. Absolutely. And if you can demonstrate that more, people then, I think, would report it. But that's, that's just what happens in my area.
Thank you. I think we go to you next, Jo. The next part of the presentation.
Thank you. I'll just wait first slide, please, Jasmine. That's all. Just to give you some context, so we have a county-wide education safeguarding team. When I say county-wide, Essex County Council area, and we cover every education setting across the county, and that means that we engage with primary and secondary and special schools. Colleges, alternative provisions, and there's around 700 of those. We also engage with every early years provider and club. And when I say early years provider, that's preschools, nurseries, childminders, and then clubs, post-school clubs, and there's around 1,700 of those. So I just set the scene there really in terms of the number of settings that we do have networks with. So, and the education safeguarding team, and me in my role as heading up that team and safeguarding lead for the directorate, we have strategic oversight of everything safeguarding related across all those settings. So just to give you some idea of that, thank you. So in terms of key statutory documents, and we've talked today about working together already. We as education settings work in accordance with that, obviously. Keeping children safe in education is the main statutory safeguarding guidance for education settings for schools, and in early years they work to the statutory frameworks. I have to say in Essex we've been doing a lot of work around our early years providers, and actually we hold our early years settings to the same standards as those within it, keeping children safe in education, and we've held a strong line on that, because why would we apply fewer standards to younger children? And our early years settings engage with that, I'm pleased to say, and we're chipping away at that. The set procedures you're all familiar with, and then another part of my role is around the prevent duty, and obviously there is schools, education settings have to also comply with the prevent duty, and there are specific requirements on them around that. Thank you. So what do we do within the team? And again, I thought it might just be helpful for you to understand how we encourage and promote, I would say, a very strong and consistent message around safeguarding across all our settings. And I think that consistency is one of the strengths that we have in Essex, actually, in terms of that consistent approach. So we do write, Karen's touched on training. Every professional working with children and young people has to undertake level 2 training. And we write the level 2 training programme for education settings. And as of the last 5 years, we now share that across early years settings as well. And as I say, they're not required to do that, but many of them engage with that. And we write a suite of presentations for them, and the designated safeguarding leads in each of those settings takes that back into their own setting. We have for the past year and a half also been providing level 3 training for designated safeguarding leads, and that is enhanced training for safeguarding leads in education settings. And I have to say, from our perspective as a local authority, that has been a really positive move. We've now trained around 1,600 people, I would say, over the past year and a bit. And we're having really good feedback about that. And again, it really helps to promote that strong approach to safeguarding. It's a day's in-person training, and it works really well to strengthen safeguarding arrangements across settings. We write model policies for education settings. And again, all this applies to all the settings that I've talked about. So examples: model child protection policy, harmful sexual behaviour. And again, we write different policies for different settings, and a use of reasonable force model policy as well. And in fact, the statutory guidance has just been updated around that, so we're just currently updating all that. We write a series of guidance documents. So again, examples there: harmful sexual behaviour, understanding and supporting behaviour, child protection file guidance on how to maintain and share those with the next setting. And then we write a whole suite of model templates as well, again to support settings in their safeguarding work. In terms of engaging with settings, we hold termly safeguarding briefings, so we're in the process of doing that at the moment. That's held in person in each quadrant each term, and that's part of the DSL's ongoing CPD, really. We deliver key messages, key information there. We provide regular safeguarding written bulletins, and again, that goes out to all settings, multiple each term. As well as the level 2 and level 3 training, we also offer in-person safer recruitment and culture and training, and also termly online training around harmful sexual behaviour, prevent awareness, domestic abuse awareness, and other sort of prevent related issues. And then we offer ad hoc training around particular themes. So, for example, in September, we are holding a day session in person around site security and site preparedness. And in October, we're holding, again, in-person all-day training around risk in the community. We've got input from our partners, Essex Police and social care. So a lot of multi-agency training and training available for schools. And alongside that, we offer advice and guidance on complex cases. The other thing just to touch on there, which is the bottom point on the left-hand side, is around critical incidents when they happen in schools. And we've talked this morning, haven't we, about some of the very tragic cases that we see, and in particular around youth suicide, where children take their own life. So we work really closely with other partners in terms of how to support settings. It's devastating when that happens within a school, and actually it's about containing and supporting other vulnerable young people around that particular child. Thank you. And other work we do, because a lot of my role is around how we engage with other partners. And again, it's bringing all that multi-agency work, all that learning, all that information into our education settings. So in terms of the ESCB, as you've heard, we're very embedded in the safeguarding partner procedures and meetings, and also represented across the range of ESCB subcommittees, again around a whole range of issues. It refers to the safeguarding audit on there, and again Karen touched on this earlier, David touched on it. So with schools, with education settings, we do, and I'll talk about early years separately, but we do undertake every 2 years a safeguarding audit with those settings. So we last undertook that last academic year. Again, settings really engaged well with that. We had over a 96% return rate in the end, which was fabulous, and a whole separate discussion really, but nothing glaringly worrying that came from that audit. You'll be pleased to hear. But actually, we do read those audits. They do inform our work, and we respond to any particular deficits that are identified as part of that process. We have started a kind of shadow process for early years partners to introduce them to the concept that they will have to complete an audit, and we're looking at ways of doing that and a format so we can actually collect that data also from early years settings, given the number I said that we have. You'll understand that that's quite logistically difficult, but we've done a sort of early years questionnaire, we've called it, and gone out to those settings to ask for information, and we've had over 300 returns from that, just through those that engage with us through the training, through the termly briefings and so on. And then work with other partners. You can see there that we're very much involved in the violence and vulnerability unit, community safety, and a range of things that covers. We work with the PFCC and then a whole range of boards, because all of those strategic boards and the issues that they cover are relevant to schools. And again, we bring all that information, all that learning and development back into our education settings. And we have really strong partnerships, of course, and working relationships with Essex Police and Children's Social Care, again across a whole range of things. Thank you. And then other things that we do, other stuff. So we deal with any complaints and concerns that come into that concern safeguarding. They all come into my team. We do undertake safeguarding reviews, either if schools commission that as part of their safeguarding arrangements and a kind of check to their systems, or where we feel that we have concerns about a setting, we would go in and undertake a safeguarding review. And we do work to support and develop those particular settings. We provide training across the ECC Education Directorate. I have a role around head teacher wellbeing and supporting that. And again, there's a whole range of things that we do around that. We have a role around SEMH, social, emotional, mental health and suicide. We have a team that focuses on SEMH and again provides a lot of resources and training for our education settings. And then I'm also involved in Prevent and Channel Panel, and also working very closely with our Children's Safeguarding Service around allegations against members of staff, and I'm involved in particular cases around that. And again, we support and advise schools around those issues. And as I've said there, it's anything else that impacts on safeguarding in education settings. And then just for your information, we do have Essex Schools Infolink, which provides all the information that I've talked about and training details for education settings. And then just moving on to the next slide, we have the early years website. And as I say, all our resources are replicated for our early years settings as well, early years settings and providers.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Sounds like you're an extremely busy lady that we already knew that. It just reinforced our opinion of you. Thank you very much. It's interesting what you said about the early year settings that are now become part of the main work you do. The 700 education settings, does that include the early years?
We have around 1,700, it fluctuates monthly, but we have around 1,700 nurseries, preschools, childminders, breakfast clubs, after-school clubs, sports clubs.
Over and above the 700?
Over and above, yeah. That's so we have, because we work with so primary, secondary, independent schools, colleges. So if you put all those in plus the alternative provisions, PRUs, there's around 700, 750 of those, I guess. And again, it changes, but around that.
It's really, really great that you've taken that on board, because there's an awful lot that starts when they're very young age as well, isn't it?
It really is, and I have to say we have excellent engagement from education settings around safeguarding. We really, really do. Schools want to get it right, settings want to get it right, and regardless of whether schools are academies or not, we have really good engagement with our settings.
Really good to hear. I'll go to Tom because I think you've got it.
Well, I'd like to endorse what Joe has said. It's fantastic support that you and the team offer, and I think I can certainly attest to, whilst your duty of care clearly first and foremost is to the children, you also understand schools, you understand school leaders and how they have to work and the pressures, and you're incredibly attentive to their well-being also. And I would say your availability, both of you and your team, often, you know, you'll answer the phone straight away. It's you're there, you're available, you're a member of your team to answer any questions that we might have. I can think of in the last year, thankfully St John Payne has not experienced a child that has taken their own life, but we have had 2 children that have died. You know, fantastic bereavement support and well-being for the children in the school, for the families of the children who have been deceased, and of course for staff also. So interesting to see the extent of all of your responsibilities. It's unenviable. Certainly all that you do is fantastic support. All of the updates, all of the training that we're able to access are excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
That was just an approbation of what great work you do. There's only one of you, isn't there?
Well, I have a team now, I'm very pleased to say. I'd like 100 more of them, but yes, I do have a team and they all work really, really hard. And we work with our quadrant colleagues as well, of course. So.
Yeah, partnership working as well.
Yes.
Councillor Barker.
Yeah, 2 questions if I could. You said that everybody has to have level 2 training.
Yes.
Does that include people like cooks, dinner ladies, playground supervisors?
Yes, every adult in the setting.
They go to see the children in a different setting rather than where they're sitting.
Absolutely.
Another one, but probably not a fair question, this one. We have 200 children with EHCPs and another 3,681 children who are also home educated, according to the wonders of the phones. So 3,881 children. Is there a responsibility somewhere, either within the county council or elsewhere, for the welfare of those children, the potential welfare? You know, they are only 200 have EHCPs, but there are reasons parents are choosing not to put their children into one of your education settings. And to me, that makes a child more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not mixing with their peers, they're not out on the playground, they're not learning social interaction. Makes more a loner to a... I'm not sure what I'm doing.
Remote assessment.
You've got some penicillin in your bag or something.
Have some antibiotics, absolutely.
Joe.
So elective home education, as we know, I have to say and would always say that parents have a legal right to remove their children for elective home education, and of course many parents do that very well. I think my starting point with any training for settings is to recognise, and the DfE is really clear, that schools and settings are very much a critical part of the wider safeguarding for children, and that's because in the main where children attend school or any setting, because again it applies to early years as well, they are the eyes and ears. We have eyes and ears on those children. So of course potentially children who do not have the opportunity to access a provision are potentially more vulnerable, but that's not, of course, to say that every child is. In terms of our safeguarding arrangements around those children, it's limited for obvious reasons. However, we do have, and again, it's a very small team given the number of children that they are dealing with, but we do have a central team that work, so it is the EHE team, and they do work with children who we know about, who are registered with us for EHE, for elective home education. The purpose of that team and the powers of that team are to monitor the quality of education and to ensure that children are receiving that appropriate education. And where they're not, we will take steps to put them back into a school. And there's a legal process by which we can do that if parents do not sort of immediately engage. In terms of safeguarding, we would be raising concerns in the same way as anyone else if we pick them up, and that would go through the usual reporting process through the Children and Families Hub and into social care, those cases that are appropriate to be escalated into social care. I will say that we where we know if a parent withdraws their child from school for EHE and there have been previous concerns, we prioritise those cases. And if we became aware of a safeguarding concern, we would prioritise those cases for a home visit rather than an online visit. But actually, the powers of the local authority are very limited in terms of our ability to intervene. And even enter the house actually and have contact with the children. So it's very difficult. If you think about Op Encompass, which is something that we do now with Essex Police, and we've been running that in Essex for about a year and a half now, and that entails the notification of education settings of where a child is on roll, where the police have attended a domestic abuse incident the day before. So we do extend that to EHE children as well, where we know that they are electively home educated. And again, we would prioritise those children for a home visit rather than an online sort of check of their education. And again, we'd be working with other agencies, and of course that goes through police triage and social care triage as well, in terms of how to whether there's any sort of immediate risk to those children. But it's very difficult because they're not in the sight of professionals in the same way that other children in school are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Councillor Stamp.
Yeah. I don't know if how it will fit in with you, because it's all I've been over the media recently in a case where somebody's been found to be breaching safeguarding, shall we say. How does that fit in with the community groups and clubs? Do you have any role in that, or is it down to the police? Because obviously safeguarding practices and procedures weren't being adhered to if they had any, and it was dealing with children of that age, starting from little ones going up to bigger ones. So they were all in school. So I just wondered, does that come in to do with anything within your role, Jo, or is it outside a totally separate issue of responsibility?
What was the concern? Do you mean an adult working with those children, or? Yeah, okay, so offending against children.
Yes, and it's been all over the Basics Police have just released it. It's quite a big case.
Yes, yes, I'm with you. Yeah, so there is the Children's Safeguarding Team, and that sits within social care, Essex Social Care, and actually Paul Line manages those. So they deal with allegations about members of the workforce, but in terms of education, yes, I would be involved in some of those cases, depending on what the concern is. In terms of reach,
if it's been raised at school, then you would have been.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And we work really closely with the LADOs, with the local authority designated officers around particular cases. Not every case. I don't need to be involved in every case, but some of them are concerning. Or if the LADO had concerns about how the setting had dealt with it, then they would bring me in. But in terms of our engagement with clubs and settings, we certainly encourage them to engage with us. They're invited to all our training. They can have access to our resources. So we do pick them up in that way. I'm not going to say that everyone engages with us. But again, if we had, there was, to give you an example, there was a club, let's say it's a club where we did have safeguarding concerns, and actually the primary school raised concerns in that case. And again, we've got really good networking, so they know where to raise them, or there was a response to it, and we did engage with the club, and I met with them, and we again offered them model policies and so on. So
just to say, for those clubs that don't sit anywhere near education settings, so I don't know, community type clubs, the community and voluntary sector are the biggest of our safeguarding training and multi-agency safeguarding training level 2 and 3. So of course we're not hitting everyone, but we work really closely with people like Essex Council Voluntary Youth Services. Anyone who's a member of theirs gets a reduction on the training costs for their level 2 and level 3 training in the multi-agency sense. So actually they will all be told about allegations management, and that support is there for them as well. Now obviously we cannot mandate every single voluntary club and community organisation out there to attend our training, but we see a massive range of different organisations coming to that training, which is really, really good. And then we've got people like Essex Boys and Girls Clubs, obviously, who are a member organisation as well, and they go out and deliver loads of safeguarding training to organisations that we wouldn't see on safeguarding board training, but they deliver that safeguarding training. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but there is lots and lots of safeguarding training happening out there.
There are different routes where it might come in and where we might be able to reach out.
Lots of sports organisations, for example, rugby, football, they have safeguarding training within their requirements for being registered with them.
The Scouts fit into that as well.
So Scouts have national training, as do Guides, and they are also both members of Essex Council Voluntary Youth Services.
So you're the linked in with you. Yeah.
I'm just going to add, thank you, just going to add on Councillor Parker's first point about everyone in schools having to take this training. As a governor, I've just gone through my safeguarding training, and boy, is it intensive. And governors have huge responsibilities actually in school. So it's well worth the training, and it's quite an eye opener.
Thank you. And actually, we do provide support for governors as well, and online term briefings for governors and some templates and things. So, that came out of the audit actually a couple of years ago, in that was a bit of a less strong area. So hence we put those interventions in.
Good. I have another question. Do you have retraining on it? Because I can remember I've done it years ago and as a governor, but I don't remember doing anything since.
So keeping children safe in education is brilliant because it tells people they have to do their DSL training every 2 years, and most education settings will do annual refresh at the beginning of September.
Okay.
There is no other guidance that says you need to do safeguarding training on a regular basis. We recommend, because it was in a working together several versions ago, that you repeat it every 3 years.
Interesting, thank you.
And again, we encourage schools, train your governors, tell them to come to the briefings.
We did it for a year, so I've not really done it. I'm just interested if you had to refresh your training.
Yeah.
Most schools will make governors do training on an annual basis like they do for their staff teams.
And if I may, Chair, I've got an idea that when Ofsted come in, they'll have a look at, make sure they've got all the certificates there.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we run this programme, we've got all of us elected members have got to be DBS checked.
Yes.
And the enhanced level as well. So that kind of goes for anyone in the children. Councillor Barker, you're on it.
Chairman, I was just going to raise the point that come May, we will have a new cohort of councillors here.
We will do.
No, you know, and they will all be told that they are corporate parents, and they should all have some safeguarding training. We feed that through democratic services.
Even though some of our current members don't realise what co-parenting responsibilities mean, but let's not go there. Thank you. Charles, anything that you're not part of the presentation, but you're sitting there quite lowly, look.
No, never lonely in the sector.
You'll have to talk to us about your challenges, of going into one and LGR and anything else that you might.
Yeah, there's
ICBs.
ICBs, right?
Yeah. So thank you, Chair. So for Essex, as of the 1st of April, the NHS Essex Integrated Care Board will stand up as a statutory organisation and legal body that will hold statutory responsibility in health under law for the strategic oversight of safeguarding practice, which will be an all-age approach. We will maintain the function of providing safeguarding advice, complex case and escalation processes. We will be responsible for responding to national inquiries, and we will also hold the child protection information sharing protocol responsibility for Essex. In addition, we will obviously hold a direct role as Strategic Commissioner for Healthcare Services to ensure that any provider of health services meeting its statutory obligation for safeguarding for children and for adults. And we will maintain the primary oversight and assurance of primary care services that is not being moved to NHS England currently, or as will become a regional part of the Department of Health and Social Care. So statutory legislation will not change in respect of primary care, and I say primary care in its widest aspect, so that will include pharmacy, optometry, dental services, as well as GP practices in primary care. And we will continue to ensure that those independent businesses are meeting their statutory responsibilities for safeguarding. There will be some roles and responsibilities that will be transferring to the providers, so operational leadership and partnership arrangements for safeguarding will move to providers, as will the responsibilities for the multi-agency safeguarding hubs. That will no longer be an ICB responsibility. That will move in whole to providers and their responsibilities. However, for children's safeguarding, so the Families First Partnership Programme, that will remain a responsibility of the ICB, and we will work in partnership, obviously, to develop strategic local plans. And I note that the councillor obviously mentioned children with EHCPs, and will be obviously aware of the school's white paper and the responsibility for statutory partners to engage in the local area SEND reforms. So we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon where we are meeting collectively with Local Authority Director of Children's Services to move forward with the request that has come both from the Department for Education and also the Department of Health and Social Care to ensure that the publication and presentation of those action plans are submitted by June. So there is a clear responsibility of the ICB and the local authorities to work in partnership to ensure that we respond to national government request. We are in the process of concluding our consultation period, and that will conclude by the 18th of March, with then our understanding of what our workforce will be as we move forward on the 1st of April, and obviously to inform committee members that, as well as local government reform, NHS England itself will now move to its own consultation period, which we are expecting to commence in May, with then the national consultation, which will then take forward in October. So there are a lot of moving parts in the health landscape, but we remain resolute with our focus on safeguarding, which I think David said at the top of the presentation, which is irrespective of what happens naturally, we will not lose focus on ensuring that we maintain our statutory responsibilities to safeguard children.
You've just answered the question I was going to ask you. Yeah, it's great to hear, and we do feel for the changes that you're going through, and there is a Essex Health Wellbeing Board workshop on the 18th that will touch on that very subject. Should it be there? Members, any question for Giles?
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I think someone else beat you to giving some medicine to one of our colleagues. There's no further questions. The one thing, and probably for Paul and maybe for Lucy, children in care who go missing, what's the level of vulnerability against those in the mainstream thing? You know, is there a correlation there? Who is more vulnerable? I don't know which one. Paul, do you want to start then with Lucy?
I think what we heard earlier is that when children and young people go missing, then there is an inevitable vulnerability about that child or that young person. The corporate parenting panel, which you are part of, get regular reports about the numbers of young people that go missing, and regularly we have a discussion about the pull and push factors in terms of what's helping them to stay wherever they are and what's pushing them away. I don't think it's quite as sophisticated as I would like it to be, because sometimes you have young people who do in a residential care home. If they're not back by 10 o'clock, they get reported missing. Well, there's quite a lot of 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds who don't get back by 10 o'clock, and I'm not quite sure that's a great use of everybody's time and the police's time as well, really. But I'm not going to minimise or be complacent about their vulnerabilities. But for the children in care who go missing, we actually know those young people pretty well, and we know what their lifestyle's about. We know those that are most at risk of being exploited when they're going missing. Others might be a 17-year-old who wants to stay with their girlfriend rather than actually come back to the accommodation. So I think we do a lot of work around, and then we have processes and procedures, as we heard earlier. If they go missing for a specific period of time or a specific number of episodes, then we'll have strategy meetings. We will offer those young people, as indeed the police offer a safe and well check, then we will offer them what we call a missing chat. A lot of young people who go missing are not going to tell us where they've been, who they've been with, what they've been doing.
Where they got missing in the first place.
Well, we try, I suppose, is what I would say, really. So I think we probably offer as much as we possibly can, and we try not to be judgmental about them going missing. It's more about their safety and security and their well-being when they do.
Thank you. Luke, any thoughts?
Paul said it brilliantly. The only thing I'd probably add is that the work that Katie and her team have been doing is to try to work with care homes, as a good example, to make sure that they are making those basic inquiries when somebody goes missing, so that if they are at their friend's house 10 minutes away, then there is an opportunity to safeguard them and make sure that they are where they're supposed to be, rather than it immediately becoming a police issue and there's lots of work diverted their way. So we're working with them, and I think that's been quite successful, hasn't it, around reducing some of the volume of the people that we probably actually don't need to go looking for straight away. And actually, volume-wise, I think the volume would suggest it's mainly people who aren't in care who are going missing. But there is always, and that's probably links us right back to the online position, there is always that risk of vulnerability because we're not always sure who they're communicating with, and that's where the intelligence of when people return, the missing chats from social care, the return interviews from police are absolutely crucial to try and build that picture.
Great, thank you very much indeed.
That's where social media comes in handy, because it goes everywhere, doesn't it? It goes across the board. Twitter, Facebook, Insta. I don't think I do Insta, but the one, and it goes, and then it's really good because you then get that update found, and you all go, thank God for that. They've not come to any visible harm, that they've actually come home. We don't know what's happened to them, but that to me is where social media is really good.
Thank you. Well, David, you've got a formidable team around you, and it is really, really reassuring to hear all the activities and what's in place by all the partners and how well the partnership works. And I think picking up on Paul, the biggest threats on that you have here, the biggest challenge, social media and online, which is incredibly difficult to police, and you chip away, you do all you can, and I'm sure that everybody's very grateful for the work you do. But it's extremely reassuring to hear how well the partnership works, and that you're all equal contributor to the finance of it. And just as a lasting thing, is there any challenges on the financial side at all that you are particularly concerned about?
I think he's asking, have you got enough people?
The budget is set for 26-27, so I have no worries over the next 12 months.
So in terms of the Essex Safeguarding Children's Board, then we could always do with a lot more money, but we're also extremely conscious about how cash-strapped all of the agencies are at the moment and the additional demands on their services. We actually only are budgeted for something like £1.25 per child across the whole of Essex, which is really not a lot when we've discussed with you all come under that and our responsibility, really. I think we inevitably have to look forward to the LGR decision. What's that going to mean? What are we going to do in terms of safeguarding boards when we know whether it's 3 or 5 or whatever, really? So we try and manage our resources as best as we possibly can. We have been given some additional support from the Families First Partnership Programme that we've also talked about. So I think, as David has said, we're okay for a year. We'll be thinking towards the middle of that year, what's that going to mean for the following 27, 28, before April 28, when all the new authorities need time.
Chairman, before you go, could I actually thank Karen, because she came to the pre-meet. You were the only one there.
I didn't invite the others because it was quite short notice.
Oh, well, that's
so to be
fine,
fair
but
to them.
it doesn't really matter. She was the only one there, and she answered a lot of questions that we had there. And you haven't said a lot today, and I think it's only fair that I certainly will thank you for that. I did raise a few questions and concerns, and they've all been addressed now. So I think it's only fair that we thank her for funding.
It's a reflection of your knowledge there, Karen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the committee, thank you very much indeed for that. And ideally, it would be great if the Safeguarding Board carries on post-LGR in the same shape as it is for the best outcome to our children's safety. But thank you very much indeed for your time and your contributions. Very much appreciated. Thank you. There was a doctor in the house.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Vivi?
Thank you very much. Wendy.
Good. Yeah, well done.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Well, that was a formidable presentation, I felt. The area concerns were highlighted by Paul, really, but the enormity of the work these guys are going to do, and the size of Essex, it's enormous. And I don't know how you feel about what recommendation this committee can make. And the only thing really, in my wrapping up was, let's hope this carries on, and whether we want to, how much weight we'll have if we all agree that the Safeguarding Board should carry on in the same shape or format. If anybody's going to take any notice, remains to be seen. But I welcome your comments.
Yeah, I agree.
Councillor McCrory.
Well, absolutely agree. I mean, I find it very frustrating with all this LGR stuff that we seem to be so restricted on what you can actually do in terms of, unitary areas. And I just can't get to grips with why you can't still have in some instances an Essex-wide umbrella organisation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I would be fully supportive of your suggestion.
I think the most sensible,
Councillor Buck.
the most pragmatic thing for, next May we have elections. Next June, July we're going to be appointing these chief execs to these new shadow authorities to become authorities. They've got to get in a small room with hopefully some ordinary councillors who can bang their heads together. We do not need 3 gypsy and travelling units or 3 safeguarding units or 3 parking partnerships or 5.
Yes.
About the committee you normally chair, waste and gravel.
Yeah.
Well,
How can you split that?
there are bits of this county that haven't got any waste or gravel.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having a thing that says, this is lucky here, we haven't got to produce any waste. Well, this is a whole thing, and this, it's a big area. But the other thing that I think that the county-wide thing brings is consistency. We're already in partnerships with Southend and Thurrock. It doesn't need to be broken. And we're going to, I think, end up with a situation where maybe something like this sits with Unitary 1. Maybe something else, like the pensions, sits with Unitary 2. And something else sits with Unitary 3. And everybody contributes, per capita, as it were.
I think we're all on the same page here. Yes. And the point I made in several forums, the response has been, there's nothing legislatively that could support, it will have to be an agreement between the authorities. That's the answer I keep having. Social care, okay, you could split it up in children's services. Will it still be outstanding? Probably not, because the work is done by quadrant. That's another thing I get told. It's quadrant do all the works and things, but the overall control should sit under one roof, really, and it's very, very frustrating. As you said, Mike. David.
I think we should keep in mind that smaller unitaries that already exist are getting high ratings as well. So let's not underplay the fact that Thurrock has outstanding services. I think there's a difference between service delivery and specialist teams, and clearly keeping specialist teams together, I think, is something where there ought to be a consensus for. I think some of the actual location delivery teams, I think that's more debatable. But I think the loss of expertise for specialist teams and specialist service deliveries, I think that I would share that concern. But I think I don't accept completely the argument that big is always beautiful. I mean, I think we can look at some authorities which are smaller than Essex that are getting outstanding and good ratings for their services. And that's the key thing.
To me, if there's a recommendation, it should...
We are still live, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So my recommendation would be is that we support the makeup of the board and the committee that we've just had all those fantastic presentations on, because it works. And it doesn't matter if you've got a child, whether it be in Thurrock or Southend, or you still need the same safeguarding procedures and processes in place, just because you're going to have 3 separates or 1 or 2, whatever. To me, if you've got all those strategies and policies and data and all the people that we've just met with, have you got those leads going to whichever 5, 4, 3 unitaries, whatever it is? I think from my point of view, they've just proven to us they're quite safe. And I'm glad we didn't go into too much detail about the horror stories that we know that they have to listen to and deal with on a regular basis. It was quite mild today, but when we've had pre-meets, we've heard of some awful situations, what children have been being put into. And from my point of view, I feel quite reassured that this group of different partners are working really well together, and to me it works. And I don't see why that needs to change, whether it be going to 5, 4 or 3.
And I think really we should express the concern on what it would be like operationally if this was to split, you know. I mean, they're just about managing the workload, you know, in a unique, incredibly successful partnership. And when Katie talked about the Operation Firefly, what that brought about, and your question about have you know, how come it's only just done? It's not. It's been doing. It's been done for a while, but we've prioritised it now, and that's really good because they get, as Paul said, they got 16 reviews going on at the moment, you know, and there's a huge amount of, what each reviews take months to complete, and the resources that you've got to throw at it, it's just unbelievable, you know. So if you were to recreate 3, 4 or 5 of these, you know, it would be virtually impossible. So I think we should express our real concerns about splitting up, because the safety of our children will be a risk.
Paramount, yeah.
Absolutely, you know. So Jasmine has been busy typing up here as we've been speaking, and as soon as you finished, I'll ask you to read them out.
Yeah, I mean, we can finalise the wording outside of this meeting, but the general gist, if you're happy for me to go ahead, is that the committee recommends that the council continues to fully participate in, support and prioritise the multi-agency arrangements, recognising the significant value of the joint approach, and that the committee recommends the specialist teams are retained as much as possible through our LGR, and that they support the makeup of the safeguarding board, specifically the safeguarding procedures and processes, and that's replicated across other boards if that is to happen post
Strategies
LGR.
and initiatives, isn't it, as well? Because they did come out with some new.
And I think really at the beginning we should express our gratitude for the work that they do. You know, the committee is very grateful to hear the work, the partnership work that's been forged between the three. And very pleased to hear that financially it wasn't a major issue. They've fully budgeted and.
Well, that's because they're getting more than the other lot, aren't they?
Well, exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to get into that, but it was quite, you know.
Changed, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, if everybody agrees to that, then I'll draft something a bit more solid and
Circulated for general consent, but those of us here, I think we're, you know, I appreciate you've got to circulate it to the rest of the committee, even if they don't bother to turn up, but there you go. Okay, so that's really, really good. The next item on the agenda is date of future meetings. They're all been published. It'll be beyond us. It won't be us. You know, it'll be a different committee that will be.
Can I ask why we have an extra meeting? I mean, this is a March meeting, there's another March meeting, then an April meeting.
Well, we missed one in January, wasn't it? Yeah, so therefore we thought we'd have two, because the timing of officers wasn't catching up, was it? It wasn't. So we thought we'd cancel the January one and we'd have two in March. That's the reason why. And on the 24th, we should have had a session on suicide, but because the key partners cannot make, they've got issues. That will be something that we will be highlighting that the next committee must look at as a priority thing. But we'll discuss. You weren't here earlier when we talked about on the 24th, because we've only got one item, which is the performance report with PAF. We'll have a discussion on through the work programme of the items we want to highlight to the next committee, whether they take any notice or not. I hope they do take notice, because there's some pretty big stuff on there, which suicide, for example, would be one that needs to be prioritised. And there is already an excellent recording of the private session we had. So I think they should be made to listen to that and then act accordingly. So, but we will discuss that on the 24th. But that's why there's two meetings in March.
Okay.
Susan?
Can we just get everybody to agree these dates?
Yeah, are we agreeing the dates have been published in our agenda for the forthcoming year?
Is one of them online? Because I'm getting really confused now, because I sent the messages yesterday.
Yeah, so these are the dates for the 2026-27 municipal year.
Yeah.
So we just need to agree these and then we can put them in the calendar and diarise them.
Are they all in person?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this
They're
is the
not
pre,
online.
I think you're talking about the pre-meet for the
Oh, right.
24th meeting. That one's online.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused.
The one on the Monday is a pre-meet before the performance.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did check. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so those days are agreed, Jasmine. But before we go, I just really want to run through, for the benefit of the recording really, the matters that this committee covers, because, you know, this is one of the biggest, the deepest committee, the scrutiny committee that County Council has. Educational matter, of course. I will go into that in a minute. Educational matter, of course, include all aspects of SEND, and the committee does not cover skills and apprenticeship, but all other educational matters, it's down to this committee. Children's services, which includes social services and safeguarding, as we've had today. Youth services, services relating to support for the community safety and reduction of offending. And that's something that we've not had in recent years, but that's very much part of this committee. And that came to light when we did the Task and Finish group on the county lines. And we had Tanya Gillett, who chairs the youth offending team. And the work that she does with her colleagues is outstanding. But then it's something that's not really publicised. So that's another reason I wanted to kind of have this. Of course, adult social care, which includes support of assistance of people with learning and physical disability, sensory impairments, and older people from the homeless. And finally, adult safeguarding. Sports and physical activity, including Active Essex, and we've got them coming in the April meeting. Inclusion of health and overview policy scrutiny committee, the joint work we've done with them on healthy lifestyle matters. And finally, the transport services relating to any of those services that we've just gone through. They're all part of this committee, and again, the three of us were part of the candidates meeting last Saturday. This committee covers the highest spend area of the county council. You know, I really just want to go through those and put them on record. Whether someone listened to it, I don't know. But so the next item is the work programme. Jasmine, would you like to go through that on what's on the appendix?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Chairman. So at the next meeting, as Councillor Guglielmi said, we've got the corporate performance report update, and that is the data from the autumn. So we'll have Councillor Spence and adult social care, children's social care and education colleagues joining us for that one. And then the final meeting for the election on the 9th of April, we'll have an Active Essex update and also an update on the SEND legislative reforms, so the white paper that was recently published. And that is all we've got on our work programme for now, because the May meeting has actually been cancelled. So we've got quite a number of items that haven't been scheduled, and as Carly said earlier, maybe at our next meeting we can go through those and highlight them and what areas we think the new incoming committee will look at. But if anyone's got any other suggestions in the meantime, please let me know.
I think next meeting, the April meeting, it'll be quite chunky for the matters that will be presented to us, and hopefully we'll know a little bit more about the SEND support that's been a long time coming, and also to hear from Active Essex. But I think there is an awful lot on the work programme which we've not been able to schedule, and because it just kind of justifies the vastness of the remit of this committee, and so it would be quite good to kind of give some clarity, if you like, to the oncoming committee, and we can have a discussion on the 24th.
The send legislation, have you read it? Have you actually looked?
Part of it. Yeah.
It's not doing what it, in my opinion, it's not going to be an interesting meeting. A lot of it doesn't come in till 2030 anyway, does it?
Yeah,
What good is that going to do?
Really good now. Yeah.
So I'm actually looking forward to that meeting to see what.
Well, there was a big debate on the underwriting of the high needs blocks that every authority have. You know, that even that doesn't cover what's, you know, what the spend is on that. And, you know, it's, if there's something that's going to bankrupt the council, that is it, isn't it, really? Yeah.
It's a shame because it was being bigged up, wasn't it? As though they were gonna do it. And it, to me, I haven't read every page of it, but I read the summary and looking at the important. And I attended one of those, I think I mentioned it the other day, those, I can't remember where it's from, PSC. It was a government or one of those type things for 4 hours. And they went through all the SEND stuff and there was an excellent lady on there. And what I found absolutely fascinating, and it was an example of, she worked with the SEND children. And also, I'll give you another example, I think I can say it out here. Somebody came to see me the other day and they were saying that something happened in a local primary school. And this person, this little kid, didn't want to go out and put their coat on into the playground. And you'll agree with me, I think, on this, Chair. So that person didn't want to do it. So obviously that person then got a bit of a strop on. This is a young, between the ages of 3 to 6 child. Yeah, we've all been there with children. And because what the person then turned around, the teacher turned around and said, I think you need an educational healthcare plan, Karen. And I was absolutely shocked when this parent told me that just because this little person had had a paddy, which, I mean, how long do people have paddies for? And that concerned me, so I'm going to most probably raise that at that SEND meeting, because that is also most probably, that was just somebody didn't want to, Ellie would never take her wellies off. You know, that sort of thing, it's stages of growing up. But I was a bit concerned about, I think we need to refer that person, that child, because they didn't want to put their coat on. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's things like that. Those are the challenges that we're going to have as well going forward. And that's going to add to the numbers and the costs. So, might be a bit controversial on that one, but I do think... No,
I can't wait. I'll tell my son that my granddaughters, they need an HCSPC because they never want to put their coats on.
Exactly. And they want to wear their slippers outside, don't they? Not their shoes.
But that brings into line what we discussed previously, you know, how people are forced to go down the HCP route when they don't actually need one. But, you know.
I think the truth is that they would never get it under those circumstances.
No, absolutely, you know.
It shouldn't have even been suggested, should it?
But people that apply for that then become stats that they don't get processed, do they?
Yeah. And what this lady was saying was that they're trying to work within the schools now for the teachers and the helpers to identify that wouldn't have normally been an issue. So I think there's a lot of education and training that's required.
Okay, so we deferred the discussion to on the 24th, which the meeting will start at 12:30, by the way.
All right.
Not the usual time. And the pre-meet is, I think Wendy just mentioned, just sent an invite yesterday. It will be on Monday afternoon, the 23rd, online between 3 and 4. Okay, agenda items 8 and 9, urgent XM business, there are none. As I said, before I close, just remind that we got a children Essex Family Wellbeing Service briefing here in about 40 minutes.